Hello hunters, I hope you're doing well, and welcome to another solo leveling Arise video. In this video, we will talk about the hunter tier list for the recent patch of 0.2.13. And before we start, I'd like to tell everyone this is my first time creating a tier list, so if you have any feedback or recommendations, do tell me in the comments. This one is also included on the Partner Creator Plus program missions, so anytime after this video is published, a redeemable creator code will be on its way. Make sure to subscribe so you'll get notified when these codes are released. There are also current active codes which you can check on the description. I've linked the Google Sheet where all the active codes are available. And lastly, don't forget to support me on the Creator Plus program so we could go higher on the rankings. Alright, that's it. Let's proceed to the main topic of this video. We're doing a hunter tier list, but instead of ranking them overall, we'll focus on the guild boss content. The reason for that is to make the rankings as simple as possible. Hunters perform differently depending on elemental matchups, so ranking them across all content wouldn't be that fair. Instead, we're focusing on guild boss fights where every element is a weakness, making it the best way to compare how each hunter performs based on their strength or their ability to further improve their team's performance. For example, Kanai is an SS plus tier hunter in this patch because her damage is insanely high. But against Luxus and Encore missions, she dropped to F tier since Luxus absorbs fire attacks. So to keep things fair and straightforward, this list is all about who dominates and useful in guild boss battles. Starting with the SR hunters, Yu Jinho. He is a great tank and has the ability to heal, shield, and provide attack buff on A5. And plus, he's a great breaker. And with that, I'll put Jinho on the usable tier. Next is Kim Sangshik. He does have a breaking playstyle which is okay, but he really isn't useful on guild boss since you can't knock down or airborne the enemies there. I'll put Kim on the stay away tier. Next is Han Song-yi. She's a damage dealer with DOT or damage over time mechanic. DOT is great since it's a sustained damage, but her overall damage isn't that great because of her stats. I'll put her on the struggle tier. Next is Song Chiyo. He only excels in clearing normal monsters, meaning non-boss type monsters. So even if he has a good DOT mechanic, he isn't fit on guild boss. I'll put him on the stay away tier. Next is Lee Jo-hee. She's a great support only to Mirai since her A3 can provide mana to the team, similar to how Hansem is skilled to work, but much more. If you're using her with Mirai, then we can put Jo-hee on usable. Aside that, she's on the struggle tier. Next is Kang Taishik. He is a good damage dealer. He has a DOT mechanic, he can increase his attack, and provide a damage taken increased debuff to the enemy. That's really helpful since everyone can benefit from it. With that, I'll put Taishik on the usable tier. Next is Jo Kyawan. Moving on to Park Hee-jin, she can remove debuff for the team and increase power gauge refill, which is really helpful to have ultimates come back faster. A nice kit, and we'll put her on the usable tier. Next is Wang Dong-sok, a formidable tank with breaking capabilities but doesn't offer anything to the team aside being a meat shield. And you don't need one in the guild boss, so I'll put him on the stay away tier. Next is Kim Cho. He works similar with Jinho, a breaker with ability to shield the team. On A4, he can also inflict a defense decrease debuff, which is helpful to everyone. With that, I'll put him on the usable tier. Next is Park Boom-shik, a damage dealer that will always be far from the list, putting him on the stay away tier. Next is Nam Chae-young, a breaker with freeze mechanic. She can increase her break effectiveness with A1, but aside that, freeze isn't really a good mechanic on guild boss, so I'll put her on the struggle tier. And on to our last SR hunter, Ana Ruiz. She has options to choose from. A straight up damage dealer will put her on the struggle tier, a breaker, and debuffer will put her on the usable tier. Alright, we're on the juicy part now. We'll talk about the SSRs. Starting with Alicia. She still deals decent damage since there wasn't any nerf for her. A good core attacker and has a shield that can dispel debuff. I'll put Alicia on the strong picks. Next is Woo Jin Cho, a decent breaker with dash resets. Unfortunately, it's not that useful on guild bosses, so I'll put him on the struggle tier. Moving on to Baek Yoon-ho, he has a good balance between damage dealing and breaking. He also has a defense decrease debuff and a passive to increase his own damage. I'll put him on the strong picks tier. Next is Lim Tae-gyu, a powerful ranger. Has a decent breaking capabilities with core attack mechanic. He falls short with other damage dealers, but still a good one. I'll put him on the usable tier. Next is Cha Hae-in, a crit stacking machine if you'd like to call her that, able to increase her crits and attack while also applying a debuff to the enemy. No doubt a must-have tier. Moving on to Charlotte, the best dark damage dealer so far with a passive that makes her ultimate easier to unlock, another must-have tier. Next is Choi, or Che. His glory days were from the beta of SLA, but still, he finds his way to still be called the ultimate hunter. He can inflict burn plus defense decrease, which is a nice combo, and he can reset his basic skills from his ultimate. With that, Choi is on the strong picks. Next is Emma. She's great overall, but her kit is better used to normal monsters because of its area of effect. Her kit can provide heal, defense increase, defense penetration, and fire damage increase, and a burn DOT. With that, Emma is on the strong picks. Next is Essel. Essel is the reason why Fire Team is moving up the ranks. She has a skill that can tremendously increase fire damage, plus increase damage taken of the enemies. I'll put Essel on the must-have tier. Next is Gina. She works similarly with Essel, boosting the Fire Team further. She's able to increase the attack and fire damage of the team. Additionally, she can heal and increase power gauge refill, which makes her into the must-have tier. Moving forward to Go Gun-hee, the chairman and the best breaker in the game. Breaks every monsters like some piece of cookies. Provides light damage increase. Must-have tier. Next is Hansami. If you use her with Mirai, then she is on the must-have tier. If you use her without Mirai, then she is on the strong picks. Next is Harper. She does have a similar fate with Hansami. If you use her with Charlotte, then she is on the must-have tier. But if you use her without Charlotte, then she is on the strong picks. Next is Wang Dong-soo. His great kit is about removing a shield, but not very useful in guild bosses. He is a great damage dealer and can survive on his own. He still lacks damage compared to others and doesn't sync well with the other supports. I'll put him on the usable tier. Next is Ayla Wright. She will be on the must-have tier if you played her with Charlotte, since her kit is mostly for the dark team. If not, she will be on the usable tier since she can still remove debuff plus heal the other elements. Next is Libora. Her supporting kit is her charm, which increases damage taken of enemies, plus her circle, which increases dark damage for the team. When used with dark hunters, Libora will be on the strong picks. Aside that, I'll put her on the usable tier. Moving forward to Maylin, Auto must-have tier. Even if you don't play her with Alicia, she can increase attack, defense, crits, core attack, and decrease damage taken for the entire team. That's OP. Next is Min. He can heal and increase damage taken for the enemies while also providing a crit stat buff to the team. His A5 also makes the next ult of your damage dealer to deal another 50%, which is just crazy. He is going to the must-have tier. Next is Mirai, best wind damage dealer. Shing shing shing! Takes out the gut of every monster on sight. Must-have tier. Next is So Ji-woo, our good old Cerberus killer before Alicia. A great breaker and shielder and provides decent damage. I'll put her on the strong picks. Next up is Shimizu Akari, an exclusive support for the Light Hunters. If you use her with the Light Hunters, specifically Thomas, then the highest she can get is the Strong Picks tier. Aside that, she will be on the Struggle tier. Next is SM Beck, a very delicate one to use if you don't have good shielders. SM Beck needs to stay low to deal the highest damage he can. She's next to Charlotte on damage dealing. I'll put him on the Strong Picks. Moving on to Thomas Andre, the Goliath, able to sustain himself with his huge shields and has the ability to increase his own damage. He is going to the must-have tier. No questions asked. Next is Yu Suyeon. With the rise of defense penetration playstyle, her value went up as well. She is able to boost her own damage and defense penetration, plus she has a debuff that can inflict fire damage increase to the enemies. Suyeon is going to the must-have tier. And lastly, we have our new hunter, Tawata Kanai. As I've mentioned on my previous video, her damage is just incomparable to everyone. She got her basic skill that ramps up her damage, an advancement that increases her crit stats and decreases mana consumption, plus a passive that increases her damage to enemies in break state. Perfect for guild boss runs. And with that, you might have not guessed, but she is on the top of the must-have tier. And that wraps up our hunter tier list. To sum it up, rankings are based on how much value each hunter brings to the guild boss fights, whether through raw damage, powerful buffs, or debuffs. The top picks aren't just strong, they consistently perform, making them a must-have or a strong picks. Meanwhile, lower tier hunters might struggle due to weaker kits, lack of synergy, or better alternatives. Of course, any hunter can work with the right setup, but if you want the best results, this tier list should help you prioritize your team. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree with these rankings? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, happy gaming!